Going on, guys? Welcome back into another episode of the Players Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Richmond, and on today's episode, we have Fascistics founder Casey Kostrzewa. That name is so hard to say. Oh my god! But on today's episode, we talk about Casey's journey not only as an entrepreneur and founding Fascistics, but you know, Fascistics being used by Paul Skeens, being used at 108 Performance, and I really think y'all are gonna enjoy this episode. I know I did. I had a heck of a time talking to Casey and just learning about Fascistics. And not only did I get to talk to Casey about Fascistics, I actually have a couple that I use every day. I use on my feet, my hands, my neck whenever I have pain. But we actually have a discount code for you guys, and I'll get into that later on in the episode. But I really think y'all are going to enjoy this episode. So, without further ado, enjoy the episode with Casey Kostrzewa of Fascistics. Peace. All right, Casey, welcome into the pod, man. Welcome on.
Glad to be here, man.
Of course. So, for those who don't know, Casey is the creator and the founder of Fascistics, one of the pod sponsors. So we greatly appreciate it. I have his Fascistics right here. Um, so if you guys don't know what they are, they're little sticks that help you massage all the fascia wherever you need it. I use it mainly in my jaw, my fingers, my feet mainly. But yeah, Casey, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, man. I'll give a quick rundown, kind of how I invented the fascist stick and kind of how everything went with that. So it was my senior year of college. I had dealt with some radial nerve pain in my arm the year before, and I was always kind of like trying to like rub out some small areas, and I just couldn't like figure out how to rub out any small areas. So then I came next fall, and me and my roommate saw this video of someone using a pencil eraser to like floss out their hands, right? So as we do as baseball players, as pitchers do nowadays, is you're like addicted to trying to find new things, trying to find the edge with anything. So me and my roommates tried it and got some good results. One of my roommates was actually a second baseman, and his arm was hurting so much that he couldn't even throw it to first base. Like he had took the first 3 weeks
Jesus.
off of throwing, and he couldn't even like throw it. He's tried everything. He's trying cupping. He's trying ultrasound. He's trying red light, and I think the red light helped a little bit. But he tried that out. Me and him both did it. Woke up the next day and he's like, "Man, my arm feels brand new."
Yeah.
Like through that day, he hadn't thrown in 3 weeks. I was like, "Man, that's pretty crazy." Like I felt like it was helped me out a little bit, like release some tension.
Yeah.
So then fast forward, it was about a couple weeks later, and I'm just sitting in my room and I'm like, dang, like something hit me because we had like the other side.
Hmm.
So the first part of it is that small part, which is like in between the fingers, and then we saw
Hmm.
another release from I think the same person, and they're using it to go like under their jaw. So we instead of the tip of the pencil kind of like digging into your finger as you're trying to like push it down, we decided to put like a mini Nerf like foam ball. Like if you ever, as a hitter too, I'm sure you the same way. Like you ever seen like the Dominicans like shoot
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Nerf foam balls? It's
Yeah.
almost like a mini BP or like people hit corn kernels. So we put it on the other side so that we had the pencil or the eraser on one side and then the little foam ball on the other side to kind of release anything in the neck. And I was like, man, we kind of got something here. Like, and I never thought I would be like an entrepreneur or anything like that. Never in my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And so then it hit me. I was like, I have to like
I have
make this
something.
something. Yeah.
Like I
And
like I have something that many people can benefit from.
yeah, for sure. And it was like, I don't know if it's God or whatever, but like it just kind of like downloaded in my brain. It was like, you have to do this. So like
Yeah.
that whole day, I like called my dad. I was like, I gotta figure out how to do this. I wrote up a 3D design with all
Hmm.
the specifications and everything. And then
Yeah.
I was literally like going around emailing I'm in the middle of nowhere, Dubuque,
Yeah.
Iowa, in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, trying to like go to different places and see
Hmm.
if anyone had a 3D printer print a prototype of my design I came up with. So I went to like three different places. I went all the way like an hour to Cedar Rapids, nothing. And then I searched. So I was a health, wellness, and behavioral sciences major, which is basically
No
like
big deal.
exercise science plus psychology kind of combined. And so I didn't know anything about the professor. So I searched on our school website that we had a 3D printer.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I, I wish I remember the professor's name right now, but I just walk in his office. I was like, I have this design. I showed him a couple like prototypes or whatever, and I
Yeah.
was like, I heard you guys had a 3D printer. Like, can you help me 3D print this? And he's like, just like shook. He's like, oh, I did not expect this. So then a week later, we came up with three different prototypes, and then this is the design that we came up with first, or
Yeah.
the best design. And it's basically just a rock climbers have been using pencil erasers to floss their hands out after their rock climbing and stuff like that all the time. So it's basically like a permanent solution for that to get
Yeah.
into I would say it's the only massage tool for the hands, feet, jaw, and neck, or the small areas of your body. But it's a permanent version because I mean the erasers were good, but it's kind of like rubbing
It's
on your
hard to get in
skin.
there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rubbing on your skin. It's not very smooth. It'll break off pretty easily.
Mhm. And it's
So
not it's not really portable. I mean, you literally can just put these things in your bag and then they're there. I mean, I know after throwing a bullpen for me, like I always do it on my hands and I always do it on my feet. I don't hit anymore, but when I did hit, like I really would have liked to have used this just because like it's really simple and it's really easy. And, if you have, two of them, three of them, whatever, like, and you misplace one, you just have this little tiny thing that impacts you so much. And I think that like me as a pitcher, like I'm always searching for different ways to recover and make my body feel the best. And I think like ultimately people just don't look at fascia. They think, oh, well, I just have to have this big muscle group. When in reality, it's really the fascia that's being bulked up and just crunched up pretty much. And I think that it's one of those things where it's like, man, like that's really the underlying fruit of the whole, process of trying to throw harder and trying to, be the best you can be.
exactly like the more you feel better and the more like you can allow your body and arm to move how you want it to, the better you're going to throw. And over time, that consistency of, okay, now I'm in the right ranges, over time, that's going to even get you further. But yeah, it's been crazy. Like, so I took that actually out here to Tennessee, and he's a fascia stretch guy, like one of the, like a renowned fascia stretch guy. He has a certification in that. And I took it to him and showed him because he was just telling me all about fascia. I already had some background information.
Yeah.
And he used to be I think he was in the Olympics for weightlifting, but he was also a trainer for the Nebraska and Tennessee football team, a strength
Yeah.
trainer.
Go
And
balls. Balls.
go Vols. And I showed him it, and he told me, he goes, did you know Michael Jordan used to take a pencil eraser and release his feet before every game? So I guess Michael Jordan, because, obviously with the Jordan one, he had to switch out shoes every games
Yeah.
because the shoes weren't very good. Like if you ever tried to hoop in Jordan ones,
Oh
like
my God, they hurt. I have like six pairs of them. They hurt to just walk around in. Like I can't imagine playing basketball in them. Like what? Those things feel like bricks.
and trying to like if you had a 40-inch vertical and you're trying to land after that, like
Jesus.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So he told me that and I was like, man, that's really like crazy. But I mean, I'm not against like I'm still like for, lacrosse balls. I
Hmm.
still kind of like massage guns as long as they're not done too much because those will bruise a little bit. But this is really like another tool in your toolbox and
Yeah.
it gets the small areas of your body and really no one's releasing any of those small areas. And like you were saying, the fascia is it's like a Spider-Man suit that connects around your whole body. So even though you may feel it like in your shoulder or in my roommate's case, his arm over here, it wasn't actually caused from right there. Like the
Yeah.
pain is actually caused from the hands or the jaw or the neck, anything like that. So a lot of times where you feel the pain isn't actually where it's coming from, which is why it works. But yeah, there's just so many people out there, and the more I started thinking about it, the more I started kind of giving it to people, testing
Hmm.
results, even with my like grandma and stuff, the more I kind of realized that, there's so many people that hold so much tension, whether it's in their jaws, in their
Hmm.
hands, in their neck, whether it's on a 9 to 5, whether they work construction.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, in college, I actually sold more to our esports team than I did our
What?
baseball team. Yes, they'd be playing Fortnite or Rocket League, and then
Yeah.
when they died or in between sessions, they'd release their hands, and they're like, "Man, like I feel so much better." So I actually have a buddy I played high school baseball with,
Yeah.
um, and he's I think I don't know exactly the rank, but I think he's like a top 10 MLB The Show player.
My God.
And I think he was telling me the other day, so I'm sponsored on his Twitch channel. It's Truman Nation.
Okay.
But
Cool. Cool.
he
Cool.
was saying he was saying that he was like in between games, he was like on like a cold streak, and then he was like, all right, let me fascia sig my hands, and I think he went like 3 games in a row with the win against top 10
That's
opponents. So
awesome. That's
yeah, man.
awesome. So so you're pretty much like you're going around to different people when you finally find a 3D printer. So now obviously you're kind of at 108 in Knoxville. I mean, I'm sure everybody in the baseball world knows 108. If you don't, I don't quite frankly know what's wrong with you. Like they're probably some of the best of the best. What have you noticed with those athletes that are up there, these high level elite guys like Paul Skeens, that have been there? What have you noticed with those guys and their use of the fascia sticks? Have they been utilizing it before bullpens or after bullpens, or what have you kind of noticed with that?
Yeah, so a lot of times they use it before, especially like you were saying with the hands and the feet. There's also a lot of hitters that feel wrist pain and kind of like going just above, kind of like in the hand and
Yeah.
the wrist. I've seen a lot of people who have wrist pain. We actually had this one kid, he's like, man, I can't even swing it anymore. And I was like, all right, we'll just try to release almost like
Hmm.
your pinky side, kind of on that big area. He released it, and I was like, all right, just like hit off a tee, man. Like if you can't even hit before and then you release it, it feels better, but just like hit off a tee. He went straight into machine, just hitting balls again. He's like, man, it
Oh my
feels like
God.
all the way back to normal. So, yeah, I think just at least for me too, like as a pitcher, doing the feet and the hands before, got everything else to release, especially my neck too. But when you do your feet, not only do you feel like you're moving better, but you'll like also feel blood kind of rush up. Like people do lacrosse balls and stuff, but that doesn't actually get in between the bones. But the first time I ever did my feet, like I felt like my blood rush up and I had like a little bit of hip pain. I
Hmm.
felt the blood rush up and almost like dissipate that pain I was feeling in my
Oh
hip.
my God.
So, so a lot of times if you're holding tension or your feet aren't quite set or aren't quite released, whenever you start walking or start moving around, like your body has to compensate in some way. Now that could be the ankle, it could be the knee, could be the hip. But once you start moving better from the ground up, like all your movements are going to be better.
And,
That's some of
and
the craziest results.
yeah, and I really think like people kind of neglect working from the ground up as far as like pitching or hitting. And I think that that's one of the biggest proponents that I've seen, especially from you guys at 108, being working from the ground up, like whether it's force plates, whether it's fascia, whether it's, whatever the case may be, water balls, and I think that people neglect it as far as their body goes, whether it's, working out without shoes or, you know, releasing your fascia before and after, or just taking care of your body. And I think that like at the end of the day, like, if you don't take care of your engine, you're screwed. So what, in terms of injury, like everybody really wants to talk about the arm epidemic, the arm injury epidemic that's happening in baseball. What have you guys seen as far as using these things with the elbow and with the UCL and with the bicep?
Yeah, so a lot of times people when they just have now this isn't like something that's gonna, decrease. Like obviously wherever you feel pain, it's caused by how you're throwing, no matter
Yeah.
what. So
Yeah, absolutely.
obviously the only way to really get pain away is by throwing better. But yeah, like even like a cool story for you, like so Paul Skeens came out here during Bridge the Gap 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and actually gave him a couple. And
No big deal.
I don't think at first he really like understood what it was or anything. Like I showed him all the different stuff. But then it was like halfway through the season, and he texted Eugene. He's like, "Man, like I feel like my hands and my feet, like there's something about that like
Yeah.
is so important." And so I think halfway through the season at LSU, he started using that more, and obviously just helps with the recovery and everything like that, like getting the blood flowing. Because the hands and feet, if you know anything about it, like there's not much blood flow to that area, and
Yeah.
there's also, if you know the lymphatic system too,
And
it's
we
like
are getting crazy technical.
we are getting crazy technical, but if you the lymphatic system basically moves away waste
Yeah.
from the body, but there's no like heartbeat. Like it collects in the lymph nodes and stuff, but there's
Hmm.
no heartbeat. So moving around, that's why people do like lymphatic massages too.
Yeah.
Um, but moving around that gets the waste out of those areas, so it stops the blockages, whether it be a nerve, whether it be any type of blood flow to that area. So that just helps move all the waste around the body as well. But like I've always kind of been like a believer in for whatever.
What is going on, guys? I just wanted to take a little break in the episode to talk about our presenting sponsor, Fascia Sticks. Now, Fascia Sticks has been critical to my recovery, whether I'm throwing a bullpen at the field, running, or working out in the gym. They have been really great, and I highly recommend them to all my listeners. Now, if you guys use the code ThePlayersPod and hit the link in the description, you guys will get 15% off your order. Now, let's get back into the episode. Peace.
Reason in Chinese medicine. And if you look at all their like charts and everything, it kind of goes where the lymphatic system is. But that
Yeah.
was like the big thing too, is they have all these different points on your hands. Like this is for like your stomach, this is
Yeah.
for your liver. Like there's all different parts of that like
Yeah.
they've tested over those thousands of years that they were in
Hmm.
civilization. So
I was actually looking at a like a foot mat, I guess. Basically where like you put it on the ground and you walk on it and it's supposed to release stuff in your feet. So that's pretty much my only thing, but you actually taught me something. So that's great because I never knew that. I never knew like this part of your thing was connected to your stomach and all these different points on my hands, which is super cool. And I actually gave one to my girlfriend. She's a fifth grade math and science teacher, and so she's always using her hands, having to put her hand on desk, whatever the case may be. And she said, "Man, like my feet and my hands feel so much better," which is nuts. And I think like I know you kind of touched on it with Paul Skeens, but like these elite movers, I think they don't like understand. Like, yeah, I move really well, and I can throw a ball 105 miles per hour. But then it's like, okay, I throw my bullpen or I throw my start, whatever the case might be. But then the real work starts afterwards of how I'm gonna get back to 95, 90. And I really do like think like these things are just they're so small and they're so portable and literally you can do it while you're sitting on a bus, on a plane, whatever. So I mean, I just think it's one of the best tools out there, and I think that also it's really affordable. It's $20, and people spend $20 on coffee every week, so you know no big deal. But as far as like elite pitchers that you've worked with, I know before the show we were really talking about got guys like Arenado, Gorman, Donovan, all those people that are really elite movers. Have you seen them like not really care about their fascia before you've shown them this product?
I think the big thing nowadays, so I think, and I was when I was growing up too, and you and me probably grown up in the same kind of arena where it's like, you got Driveline coming out in I don't know what 2012, something like that. It really
Yeah.
started getting big, and I was always kind of like really into strength training, always into like learning more about the body, but like they didn't really start doing it's what they call in vitro studies into
Okay.
fascia, which means like you do a cadaver, and if you're dissecting a cadaver and you're looking at the muscles of some elite athlete, right? Well, the first step is to like basically cut away all that fascia, all that connective tissue, and then they're looking at the muscles. Okay, this guy, his UCL was stronger he had a little bit more muscle mass, but they cut away all the connective tissue, so they didn't know anything about that. But
Yeah.
then they started doing what they call in vivo studies into fascia. I think it was only like 6 years ago or something.
Okay.
And so that's when they really started to see how actually the fascia, like how it connects to all different parts of the body and how that actually is almost the driver for a lot of athletes. Like if you think about, there's muscularly driven athletes, but there's also a lot of fascially driven athletes. Like you'd say, okay, why is Kevin Durant, or in your case, you live in Memphis, why is John Morant? How can he jump so high? How is he so athletic?
Yeah.
It's not that he can probably squat or deadlift 400 pounds. It's that his body has that tension system. So it's almost like a spring where he can like quickly rebound energy really quick and use his whole body to not only produce force, but also absorb the force too. And like I said, if you have some type of knot in a sense in, let's say, your hand or your feet, then that's pulling the fascia in different ways, and now you're not able to use your body as much. Like
Yeah.
if let's say it's like a Superman soup. So let's say I have, my shoulder hurts, my left shoulder hurts, but what's really being caused by the fascia is it's pulling down, and it's actually my hip that's hurting. So I feel it in my
Yeah.
shoulder, but it's actually coming from my hip. So yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the best athletes, they are able to use their fascia, I would say, more than any other people, especially rotational athletes, because the fascia connects cross body. So just for a lot of those older guys too, like learning how to use their fascia more, because those guys kind of grew up in the times where it was like, just lift lift more weights, swing a little bit
Lift
harder,
really
but then you have,
heavy, swing heavy bats, throw weighted balls, the whole deal. But I just think like they neglect so much of their body and they don't even know it. Whether it's travel, whether it's, being in a bullpen for, you know, 6 innings, 7 innings, and then you just gotta get ready going fast. And I mean, I just feel like a lot of people just they don't understand the cause and effect of things. And that's really where, like, hey, like if I get this in order, if I get my fascia in order, then I'll be able to, rebound quicker or off the floor as a basketball player or, throw the ball harder, because I mean, I've seen it. Like my hands are not really that strong, and now, I'm working at a furniture store and lifting furniture, so my hands have gotten stronger, so therefore I throw harder now. But it's crazy to me how many people don't look into Chinese medicine. And I think like you're just kind of neglecting something like because of ignorance or whatever, thinking people are stupid or whatever the case may be. And it's just fascinating to me that they don't even look into it and they just dismiss it before even trying it.
yeah, for sure. And like one of the biggest examples for me too is I used to be, obviously growing up in Colorado, I was a big Rockies fan,
Yeah.
but I forget exactly what year it was. But whenever the Marlins had, I think it was Jose Fernandez, John Carlos Stanton, Christian Yelich, Marcell
Hmm.
Ozuna, talking about JT Realmuto, talking about a stacked lineup. That was such a fun team to watch.
Oh
I was
my
a big
God.
fan of them too.
Yeah.
And if you remember, John Carlos Stanton was like always injured. Like that was his knock. Like he'd won an MVP, but he was always injured. And this is before he got traded to the Yankees. And then I think I remember some article coming out one offseason where it's like, okay, he's gonna work on his strength more. He's gonna work on lifting more in the offseason so that his body is able to bear the whole 162 game season.
Yeah.
But then you look at him now and it's like,
He gets hurt all
buddy
the time,
can't he gets hurt all the time. He's tearing his hamstring. He can barely even, go second to home on a ground ball to left field in the World
which
Series.
is
And
ridiculous.
it's like people always talk about like the fast twitch muscle system, and like that's kind of, I feel like, what's missing from a lot of today's training. Now I think there's places that are, and trainers that are getting more hip with that fact and focusing on it more. But like if you think about any elite athlete, like in history, like I mean, Bo Jackson didn't lift weights. Like he was probably, obviously genetics had some key to it, but
Yeah.
like you think about Barry Sanders, he always talks about how he was just, he'd go out as a kid and they'd be playing till the street lights turned on. He was just playing flag football, tackle football with his buddies. And
Yeah.
that's what the fascist system is. It's absorbing force quickly, using force to change direction, whether it's lateral or vertical. But that's what the fascia system is that like quick to twitch muscle system that everyone was talking about that I feel like a lot of people are neglecting nowadays.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy for me. I don't know if you noticed, but the sidearm nation thing, like I throw three quarters, and for me, it's kind of crazy because a lot of people will be like, "Well, you're gonna get hurt throwing that way," and I'm like, "No, my arm actually feels great throwing like this." And people, it's funny, at least in the pitching community, I'm sure you've seen this. Like a lot of people are just ignorant to, hey, like I can throw three quarters and still be all right because my body's taken care of, my fascia is released. And I think that we're seeing that with Skeens. It's kind of nuts because if you watch his release point, like it really is three quarters and it looks like it's gonna hit you in the face. And then you're just like, oh, that's 104 right down the middle. And what am I gonna do about it? Nothing.
Yep.
Like, and
And
then
that's
no,
what's
go
crazy
ahead.
about today's like everyone's like, okay, you got to get over the top. But I mean, every person has their own natural slot that works best for them, like you said. Like, but nowadays, like you ever seen that video of Pedro when he's
Yeah,
on MLB Network where he's like, I tried to throw over the top and finish out here. Well, if you look at any video, like you pull up
he's
any video, any screenshot, he's literally three quarters.
yeah,
So whether you're an over the top guy or like you said, a sidearm guy like
yeah,
Randy Johnson, right?
yeah.
Super sidearm guy, right? Like it's almost out here. Never had an arm injury in his whole career. And then if you took his trunk angle and just lifted his arm like this, it's the
He's
same
over the top.
exact trunk angle as
Yeah.
Aroldis Chapman. So it's just your arm has to match the plane of your shoulders
Hmm.
because I mean, if I was going to put a bat straight up and I try to rotate, I'm not going to hit anything very hard. But if I have it out here, now force is playing specific, so I can actually hit a ball harder, create force. So
Yeah.
that's what I
And
think a lot of people nowadays don't quite understand.
yeah, and it's crazy just how many injuries are happening, and it's not exclusively like with TJ. I think it's ACL tears, it's MCL tears, strains, whatever the case may be. Like just people are not putting themselves in the best positions possible, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, I deadlifted 400 pounds, and then they go out and they throw an 8 inning complete game, or no, sorry, an 8 inning start, and then they wonder why they're in pain, and it's like they're not taking care of the crap that they need to take care of. And I find it crazy once you tap into that fascia and you start realizing like, man, like my body's starting to feel okay now. Like I'm starting to feel looser and things like that. It's just crazy to me that this little tiny stick of metal could do that. And it's nuts to me because I gave it to my dad who's a IT guy. He's at his desk all the dang time and he flosses out his hands all the time. And he said in 20 years his hands haven't felt better. So thanks to you, brother. But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's crazy to me because you've kind of figured out how to get into this untapped market and this untapped potential with athletes, and it's insane to me because like most people don't understand it. I mean, I think that you've done a really good job of educating people and just trying to get your name out as much as possible. And I think you guys are doing great up there in Knoxville. And you guys are just going to continue pumping out good stuff. And you're a part of a great group up there. And who knows, maybe I'll decide to make the trip up there. So yeah, man.
Okay.
But
We'd love to have you out there. But yeah, that's what the craziest part. So obviously, I built it for baseball athletes or just athletes in general. That's what I first thought my market was going to be. And then as I kind of thought about it more, kept trying out with more people, like there's a if you take the whole athletic population, like there's not that many people as the whole population, but everyone like think about how many people are working a 9 to 5 on a
yeah.
laptop all day. Their next going forward. Like that's what's
Hmm.
craziest to me is like how much not only does it help athletes, but it can help like the everyday person. And like you're saying with injuries and stuff with not only baseball, but with soccer too. Like I'm from northern Colorado and I don't know if you know this, but there's three girls on the U.S. soccer team. Northern Colorado, for whatever reason, it might be the altitude, but it's a hotbed for women's soccer. Like if
Yeah.
you took anywhere in the whole world, it was probably Northern Colorado is a hotbed because there's three girls. There's Sophia Smith, Mal Pugh, who's
Yeah.
now Mal Swanson, and
Yeah.
then I forget the third girl, but they're all from Northern Colorado. And I think what's sad to me is, I had a lot of friends growing up that played women's soccer, especially at my school, and the ACL, like if you think the arm epidemic in baseball is bad, the ACL injury epidemic in women's soccer is 10 times
Oh,
worse.
no way.
It's gotten crazy, man.
No
And like you
way.
said, neglecting the fascia, the strength training and functional movement has definitely gotten better, but those soccer athletes are fascially driven athletes. And if they're able to put force into the ground, like if my like pogo system isn't able to produce force into the ground, or I land in a weird way and it's not able to accept force, then all that stress is going onto my knee.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the big thing about like the water bags doing, like landing anything overhead, because if you have what's great about the water bags overhead, and where I think it's going to go more into, it already has gotten into some soccer teams, like especially in Europe,
Yeah.
but where I think that's really going to be beneficial, especially to women's soccer, is the ability to kind of like create more tension in the system so those injuries stop happening. Like women's soccer players, or just women in general, are a little bit looser movers.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of slack in the system and then you try to land and you got to pull all that slack out first before you land, it's not going to work great for the long run. Like you have to have a tension system so you can not only produce force but accept force really quickly. And I actually had I was talking with this soccer trainer from California. I sent him a bunch of fascia sticks, and there was actually a woman on the Japanese women's soccer team, and she had been using it for a while. She liked the benefits of it, but she ended up tearing her ACL. I think she plays professionally here too, but she's on the Japanese women's team, is like the second best in the world.
Yeah.
But she was doing her ACL rehab, and she like wasn't having much feeling in her feet from the surgery, and so she started doing the fascia stick on her feet and kind of like on her knee and stuff,
Hmm.
and that brought more blood flow, and she was able to recover quicker just from that, especially since the sensation in her foot, and that helped the recovery out a lot. So that's what's crazy
Wow.
about it, is like especially in women's soccer. I mean, like I said, Michael Jordan used to do it before every game, but like those fascially driven athletes, those areas can become tight so quick.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of release it is huge.
So you think with baseball, do you think with the will ever become fastly driven, or do you think it's still gonna be like just F it, muscle up, and the biggest guys will throw hard, or do you think we're kind of shifting to that point now?
Well, yeah, I think part of it has to do with the organizations, like especially nowadays, like seeing with some of our pro pitchers too. All these organizations just want those guys to go out there for. I mean, you look in the World Series, they got, I think it was like six relievers in one game. Like it was
Yeah.
just a bullpen game. Like you would never see that even 10, 20, 30 years ago. And it's like they just want max effort, 100%. And if you blow out, you blow out, next man up. I mean,
Yeah.
you even look at the Dodgers, like how many injuries did they have this year? And now they
A
do one
lot.
of the best. They do one of the best. They're one of the best organizations for that. But still, like the what the market is dictating is guys to just throw it as hard as they can for one inning, and boom, next man up. So I think that's eventually going to change. Excuse me, but if you look at like any of the training from like back in the day, like you look at Mark McGuire, like obviously he lifted weights, but there's a lot of guys back in the day that like almost didn't lift any weights at all because it almost got them what they felt like too tight, right?
Too tight. Yeah.
So there's like in baseball, especially, like the best athletes are going to be the best rotators. Whether you look at like even Eric Davis, right? Like pound for pound, one of the best hitters,
Oh
power
yeah.
hitters of all time, and he's
Oh
what,
yeah.
a buck six, and
Maybe.
like I forget his exact name, but like even some of the pitchers back in the day, like Who's that? Do you remember the hardest thrower like in the I think it was like the 30s or 40s
I
maybe,
think
but
it was, I think it was like
where he had
Walter
Walter
Johnson.
Johnson, where he
Yeah,
had like
yeah,
the motorcycle, and that's how they were measuring his speed.
yeah.
Like that dude is like super lanky, super fastly driven, almost like Kevin Durant, like I was saying earlier. But that's really where I think the shift is going to be in baseball. Is obviously you got big guys like I don't know who's like I'm thinking of like some big first baseman,
Like
but there's a lot of like Rizzo. I'm
Rizzo.
thinking like the fat guys,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
even like Josh Naylor,
Yeah,
Prince
yeah, yeah.
Prince
Oh my God,
Fielder.
that dude is big. That dude is
But
not like he doesn't look like an athlete at all. He looks like Prince Fielder and David Ortiz had a baby.
but
Like,
that's what separates those guys is
uh,
like they're better rotators than pretty much anyone on the planet. So, that's what the fascial system is doing is cross body rotational system as opposed to just isolating specific muscle.
yeah, yeah, and I think like the more and more people, start to really care about themselves, and and it's not really just exclusive to athletes. I think like the more and more people just start caring about themselves, and the more that they actually like take a look at like their everyday habits, because I know like I get home and my hands hurt from, lifting so much furniture or, just sitting down for all day, hours at a time. And it's like, what could I have done better? Could I have moved a little bit more? Could I have used my faster stick a little bit more? And I think it's great what you're doing, man. And I really think like you're really on the road to hopefully, making an impact on people. And, I think it's just one of those things where it's like you just gotta continue to build, and I think you're on the right track, man. I really do.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And like even like I just think there's going to be a paradigm shift of, how training in baseball happens and you've kind of seen it even over the last, 10, 15 years. I mean, even in my story too, like I grew up in Colorado. My high school I went to was right before I got there, they'd won four straight state championships.
Gee,
And I think we had at one point won like seven of the last 11 or 12 state championships. It had been in like 10 of the last 13 or something. And we're like a top 10 ranked nationally team. But so I ended up, it was kind of like a school of choice thing. So I kind of, from a young age, I was like, like I want to make baseball my thing. Like this is my thing going
yeah,
forward. So, I wasn't like the most elite athlete. I wasn't like the best player ever. Like I was pretty decent for my age, but I wasn't, like a top ranked player.
yeah. Of course,
So
I
so
really
then
wasn't either.
and so I ended up going there my freshman year, and like I said, I was super into, strength and lifting and conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where I just focused all my time. Like my mom couldn't pick me up until 2 hours after school ended. So, I'm hitting the weight room every day. I thought it was at that point, you got Driveline coming out with different articles. I followed all the Driveline, followed all the Cressy. And so it was just really all about like strength. How like strong can I get? I will say that there was times where I think what I did a good job of was still kind of training like the fast twitch. Like I'd have 2 days where it was strength, and then one day where it was like, okay, let me do a bench press, but let me go like 50% of my max and just move it as fast as I could for 3 reps. And now this is
Yeah.
before, VBT. Now you have sensors and everything for
Hmm.
that. So I was an infielder into my junior year, and I pitched a little bit, but nothing crazy. And then actually, it's funny you're talking about the sidearm nation. I was always like super over the top, and my mom and dad were my coaches when I was in elementary school, and they're like, show the ball a second, throw
Yeah.
over the top.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how like those like I have videos of myself when I'm 4, 5, 6 years old, and I'm just like throwing a dart,
Yeah.
and it's crazy how like that kept going into even high school, into college, and even after that. But yeah, so I was just so focused on strength and everything like that, and I never really understood how to move well or how to improve my movement. So then I became an outfielder my junior year. And then I went to a D2 school as an outfielder, transferred after that year to a junior college. And then my sophomore year, I broke my hamate bone 12
Oh
games into
God.
the season. And if you know, I mean, I think did you go to JUCO as well?
So I went to JUCO for a semester and then went to an NAI midway through the year. You've got to listen. You've got to listen to my first episode of my story. My story's nuts. I mean, it's kind of like Zen's, but not as hectic as Zen's because Zen's been everywhere. But I think I'd beat him out on that category.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
dude, it's crazy. It sounds like a crazy journey.
yeah, so then I broke my hand and I played in too many games to medically redshirt. So I was like,
Jesus.
screw it. I'm gonna come back for playoffs because that's especially in junior college, that's where you get your looks at.
Yeah.
And so I came back probably a little too early. I didn't have the best playoffs. And then I was hitting again in the summer, still trying to like pick up teams. At one point I was hitting, I think it was like 365 with like a 500 on base, like over 1,000
Jesus.
OPS. And so I was getting looked at by like D2 schools, and then tore my hamstring, broke my hand, and kind of just
Jesus.
went away. So I was still looking for schools to go to. So in the summer, it was like I played 8 games, and then I was literally finishing like, there's guys that'll finish with their bottom hand still on the bat.
Yeah.
So I was in practice one day, and it was like my top hand was still holding the
Mm-hmm.
bat, and my hand that I had surgery at was like just coming
It was
off the
off
bat,
the
which is
bat. Yeah.
I was like, there's something wrong. So I got it checked out. They're like, yeah, you can't hit anymore. So then I was like, shoot, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. So actually my summer ball coach was Jason Hirsch, who pitched for the Rockies, and he has a facility called Fast in Denver, or I think Arvada, Colorado. So I was like, you know what, like I threw pretty hard from the outfield. Like in those, what was crazy to me, and this is kind of like, divine intervention, was in those 8 games, I had 6 outfield assists, which, if you
Jeez.
know anything about baseball, like if a major leaguer outfielder is lucky to have 6 assists in a whole
Oh
162
yeah.
game season.
That's
So I
like
was like, man,
that's like that's like video game numbers.
for real. And so
What?
I was like, there's something there. So I was like, you know what? They told me I couldn't hit anymore the rest of the summer. I was like, man, like I just want to, keep playing baseball. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna train as a pitcher. I'm gonna come back this summer, see how that goes. I ended up pitching pretty well, uh, and I could have gone to University of Dallas, which is a D3, but I was like,
Played
you
against
know
them.
what, like
Played against them in
they're a
Dallas.
really good program.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna take a year off of school because I was already ahead. So I took a year off of school and went out to 108 when they were out in California for a gap year. And I had followed them for their hitting stuff, but I really didn't know much about their pitching stuff. And so I went out there, and next thing you know, I'm training next to 16-year-old Paul Skeens. That's what was like the crazy part to me. But I went from, I think my eval bullpen was something like 80 to 82, and I was having shoulder pain at the time. And then after that one year of really that first 6 months was just all based on remapping the arm because I was super over the top,
Yeah.
I was super pushy, and that just had come from when I was younger. Even when I was an infielder in high school, like my coach, I think one of the reasons he moved me to outfield or said I would have more shot in the outfield was like he's always like you're getting too on top of it. And then obviously as an outfielder, that probably caused me to get on top of it more. So the first 6 months was just all remapping, and then I ended up getting up to I was 88 to 90, and I really when I first started pitching, I only had a four seam and a curveball. I'd thrown a curveball when I was younger. It was decent, but after that year, the gap year, I was 88 to 90 with a sinker and a really good slider. So I ended up going to Clark University on a scholarship. First year was COVID, so then it was 3 years, and then after that, I ended up flown around to the USPBL, and then last year I was with the NoCo Owls of the Pioneers.
Okay.
I guess I'm
Cool.
with them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a crazy journey, but like that's the craziest thing to me is that like especially when I was in high school, I had no idea how to move better. I had no idea how to make my arm work better. I had no idea like really about anything. And it was like when I went out to 108, like it was really learning from scratch and
Yeah.
learning how to get my arm to move better, which was, a crazy experience. But that just made me think of like how many kids out there of like don't know how to make themselves move better or get their arm to feel better, where it's like
Yeah.
that is almost a bigger piece. Like almost anyone over 6 to 12 months can go up 100 pounds in deadlift or squat. Like that's a pretty simple
Yeah.
formula, but like to get your body to move better, and like I was saying, the best rotators are the best baseball players in the most part,
Mm.
and that's like really the big key that I kind of found out, and I wish I found it out a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but that's just how everything was going. Because I tried everything. I tried driveline. I was even freaking hitting it with as a I was trying to do the teacher man.
Lord, oh God, you don't want to hear
Yeah,
about my teacher man experience. That's oh my God. So quick little side story. So I did a post grad year at Inspiration Academy in Florida. He came down for a clinic, and me being naive what I am now, there's a clip where it's literally been going viral ever since like 2018, but he's on a wall and he's got like those little like push up things, and he's using them. And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, like I'm done being brainwashed. Like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Because I got to go to a clinic for free because I was part of the team. And I was like, dude, I was like, I've got to stop listening to what these people are talking about. Like he's just some old man yelling at clouds, and I'm done listening to this crap. So, but yeah, I get it, man. Like you've tried everything. And so you mentioned you playing indie ball. Like now, if anybody knows anything about indie ball, like you don't get paid anything. Like you're not really getting paid that much, unless you're in the American or the Frontier League. I mean, even then you're still kind of scrapping around for scraps. But have you given this to any of your teammates, from the Owls to use, and have they had any success with it?
yeah, definitely. I gave it to a bunch of my teammates out there, and I think I there was a couple of guys that were like, "Yeah, I lost it. Like, let me get another one." So I
Yeah.
sent them out there some, but yeah, just especially as a grind of indie baller, you're playing 100 games, and you're never feeling good every game.
Oh
You're never
God, no.
100% every game. So just any type of small thing where it's like, guys are doing foam rollers, all that kind of stuff. But that's just, another way, especially guys saying from the ground up, like you got cleats on, you're on different types of turf fields.
You're
Like,
traveling all over. You're
yeah,
in
like,
buses, you're not on planes, you're crammed into a bus, you're sleeping on a horrible bed. I'm sure you're sleeping at the Motel 6. I'm kidding, but maybe maybe not the Motel 6, but a Holiday Inn, whatever. And I think it's just crazy to me that like so many people could benefit from a little tiny piece of metal and $20, but they don't want to do it. And I think people are going to catch on, man. I really do. I think, like I said, you're on the right track, and I think you've kind of tried everything, and so you've kind of weeded out the BS, which is nice. Which is really nice.
yeah. And like I think the biggest thing is like no one's really ever heard that rock climbers will use pencil erasers to floss their hands, or that Michael Jordan flossed his feet before every game. So no one really knows of the releases. Like me, like being so far into the strength and conditioning and athletic performance industry, like I still didn't even figure that out till I was 22. And so like the biggest thing for me, and like you were saying with your girlfriend and your dad, like, once people have it in their hands, like they really start to feel the benefits of it, and that's when you know they're telling their friends. Like that's for me, I think, like I was saying with the esports team, is like the word of mouth for the fascia sticks is probably my biggest thing right now. Like
Oh,
I
really?
have athletes in the MLB. I had pro teams buying it. Like, I have all those people, but like the biggest thing is word of mouth. Once people get the product in their hands and actually learn how to do the releases, like they'll start to see a benefit and they're telling all their friends or they're using it more. So it's just really getting into people's hands at this point in time. And I think you have a discount code. I forget exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
so if my listeners wanna get a discount, you guys can use the Players Pod at checkout. I'll include those links down in the description. So yeah, man. But I think that about wraps it up. If that's cool with you, I'll hit
Sounds
this
good to me.
button